Looking forward to working with you then. Though you'll have to convince the other guy to come with you. No offense, but you don't seem like the subduing type. Good luck, he said as he sank into the water. Meanwhile, Naruto eyed Jugo. He walked over to the tall man. I will not help you, Naruto-san. I do not wish to hurt you as you are a part of Sasuke's team. Unfortunately, I don't have any faith in your ability to stop me from my rampages. I am Sasuke's shield, not yours. The only reason I've stayed here is because I'm sure Sasuke will have a need of me at some point. Jugo slowly stopped talking as the air around him grew cold. When he stared into Naruto's eyes, he shivered. The unstable flames of rage hidden deep within his being cooled when they met the cold, unforgiving eyes of death. For all life, even the strongest that reigns at the very top of the mountain, there was always a chill that ran up the spine. There was always the fear, the understanding, the inevitability of death. No matter how far one runs. No matter how long one hides. No matter how long one struggles, death comes to all mortals. And for those who aren't strong enough, they could only tremble under its powerful gaze. That was what Jugo felt right now. Naruto had yet to speak a word, the silver flames of Honshu burning within his eyes. Not that the orange-haired man wanted to, but if his psychotic side did manifest itself, he truly feared for his life. Just with Naruto's gaze alone, he'd witnessed over 100 of his deaths, each of them more horrible than the last. Behind the young Konoha nin's gaze rested 1,000 maddened souls. Jugo didn't even feel the sweat fall off the side of his face until the gaze was gone. His ears absently picked up on the rattling of his chains. The room was oddly silent. All eyes on the two of them, everyone having felt Naruto's piercing gaze. Even Yura and Karen ceased their squabble to observe the actions. Finally, Naruto spoke. His lips curved upwards. True, I might not have Tem's demeanor, but I've got my own ways to keep you under control. If you'd like to test them out, I won't hold you back. I just can't guarantee you'll appreciate the results. Now, you've enjoyed your time on my clan's island for long enough. If you'd like to keep being Tem's shield, then I think you're due for a little rent. Besides, if you're as terrible as you think you are, then I can't exactly leave you here unattended. Whatever you do on this mission will be on my head. All except that. The blonde grabbed his sword and sliced through Jugo's chains, setting the man free. The man continued to stare at Naruto, his rage quelled by his sense of fear. Like a mortal in the face of the shinigami himself, Jugo could only nod before he watched Naruto turn around. Good, then prepare to head out. Both of you grab whatever you need. We're leaving today, he ordered. Suigetsu eyed the blonde warily for a moment. HMPH, something makes me wonder if this guy's gonna be worse than Sasuke. Makes me shiver for such a goody two-shoes, he thought to himself as he grabbed a towel and hopped out of the tube of water. Meanwhile, Naruto turned to Karen. The two Uzumaki stared at each other before the redhead grumbled. Fine, I'll help out as well. Just let me get my stuff. You're still not as cool as Sasuke though, Karen said before she walked down a hallway. She couldn't believe this. What was her life coming to? As Naruto and Yura watched her go, the former turned to the latter. You know you'll have to get along eventually, he said while Yura folded her arms. Somehow I doubt that, Ni-sama. Now, are you done assembling anyone you need? She asked. Naruto's lips curved upwards. Well, he did have one more person in mind. By now, she should be done with her coffee. Yugao, Kakashi, Makoto, and Sasuke landed in front of the Konoha archive office. The current leader of the group opened the door and stepped inside. I never liked coming here. The smell of stale, old paper always irked me, she said as she nudged at her scarf. Kakashi and Yugao laughed while Sasuke snorted. Now you know how it feels when you're at the academy. Perhaps the Uchiha clan should invest in better paper, he responded. The Uzumaki clan specializes in ink and the Uchiha clan specializes in paper. Do I sense an alliance in the future? The purple-haired woman asked with a small smile. Kakashi chuckled as the four came up to the counter where a shinobi was working. He seemed to be working on some type of old parchment paper before he took notice of them. Can I help you? He asked. Yugao took out her ID card and nodded. Yes, you can. Do you have a catalog of all matters related to the cult of Jashin? She asked. The shinobi glanced at her. Hell, even the shinobi and kunoichi who were working behind the man in separate cabinets stared at the four with trepidation. The group watched one of the kunoichi lead away a group of genin. Seems the Jashin cult has spooked a lot of people since it was revealed they infiltrated the village, Kakashi whispered as the others agreed. Makoto hummed. Well, what else would you expect from a cult of sadistic murderers? I hear they're one of the few enemies of every nation. Their deaths aren't even done publicly if they're found for fear of retribution. As the four Hinokan members stared at the archive workers, the shinobi at the table removed himself from the desk. Hope you all haven't eaten yet. You might lose your lunch. We'll prepare a room for you. However, unless authorized by the Hokage, all archived intel is to remain in this building. The man said before he disappeared down the hall. Well, that wasn't ominous at all. After 10 minutes, the four were taken to a room by a group of young genin. There, they were greeted with two large, stuffed folders with files. Each folder had a seal on it, protecting its contents. Two archive shinobi undid the seals and slowly walked out of the room. Enjoy your studies, one of them said before they left. Being left alone, the four looked at the two folders. Well, I guess we should get to work, right? Kakashi asked. The others agreed and took their seats. Kakashi and Makoto took one folder while Sasuke and Yugao took the other. Just opening one, the four widened their eyes. This is gonna be a long day. For someone who claimed to need our help, he sure is late. I'm still tempted to leave, Suigetsu said as leaned against the wood fence leading into the Uzumaki compound. Jugo and Karen glanced at their teammate, the latter rolling her eyes. Even after all this time, you haven't learned a single shred of patience. Give him a minute. Trust me, if he wastes my time then, cousin or not, I'll make him regret it, Karen said as she pushed up her glasses. Then I guess I'd better not waste any more time then. The three turned their heads and stiffened when they saw Naruto walk forward with Kodohime, Yura, and Konan. The team of 7 came together. So you even roped in a former Akatsuki member? Aren't you two supposed to be enemies? Suigetsu asked. Just like we should be enemies since you three haven't completely renounced Orochimaru yet, Yura said with folded arms. As noted, that knowledge didn't do well for Kodohime. She glared at the three as the Konan stepped next to Naruto. Ordinarily, you'd be right. However, I don't think I'm much of a member of that group anymore. I have had a lot of things challenge these days, Konan replied. The others observed her melancholy look for a moment or two before Naruto summoned Tara and Taji. The two appeared before him. Alright, we're all assembled. Lead the way, he said. Suigetsu leaned over to Yura. Who the hell is he talking to? The young man asked. Spirits, now let him focus. She quietly hissed as Naruto watched the two spirits bow. They quickly flew off to the west. Naruto watched them go and held out his hand. Jikuyugami no Jutsu, the banished Hinokan member called out. The others felt the wind shift before a large portal appeared in front of them. Karen swallowed nervously as she adjusted her glasses. Naturally, she'd seen the technique before, but there was always something amazing about it that justified the traditional sense of ninjutsu. Alright, let's get going. We're gonna head to the west for now. Make sure you keep up, he said as he stepped into the portal. Yura, Konan, and Kodohime quickly followed after him. Lastly, Jugo and Karen stepped into the portal while Suigetsu sighed. Somehow I feel like this is my fault for not saying fucking off to Sasuke. Who knew I'd be walking through portals and shit? I really don't think this is a good idea, but when have I ever let that stop me? The white-haired man asked himself. He then proceeded to dive into the portal before it closed. 3721. Chapter 62. Yuri groaned as she entered the grounds of the Konoha Academy. There'd been a letter delivered to the Uzumaki compound that asked for her attendance. While she didn't have the highest opinion of Konoha at the moment, she knew she couldn't turn down the offer. It certainly wouldn't go well for her career as a kunoichi. Besides, it wasn't like every single person in Konoha deserved her ire. When she looked at some of the construction still going on throughout the village, she had to admit that she felt for some of the people. Naruto couldn't stay like this, on the edge of losing his mind to viciously evil spirits. It seemed odd. Yuri had actually never questioned it before, the nature of spirits so evil their very acts could turn the insides of the living. Demons in human flesh, some executed by justice and others never brought to it at all. Too many for even the god of death to handle. Then, there was the thought of other worlds. People more powerful than anyone the elemental nations had ever seen. Yuri knew she'd have to get stronger. To stand by Naruto's side, and to fight the demons that he couldn't. The only question was, how was she supposed to do that? The young redhead walked through the hallways of the academy, memorizing herself with their structure. She imagined her cousin walking through their halls, a hopefully bright smile on his face. He used to tell her what a troublemaker he was. She was definitely like him in that regard. "Hey, Sanbi, what do you think I should do to become stronger?" Yuri asked. "You should know that there are still many things you still need to work on, girl. Your control is shoddy, your jutsu are flimsy, and you're hardly as powerful as you imagine," the three-tailed crab turtle said while Yuri groaned. "Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence," she replied before she started thinking. Despite the awkward wording, Sanbi gave Yuri a place to start. Chakra control, ninjutsu, and taijutsu, all of those areas and more she needed more training in. The young genin finally found the room she was supposed to go into. She grabbed the sliding door and pulled it open. "Well, it seems that the last of the group has finally arrived. Glad you could join us." Yuri peered into the room and she quickly noticed the group of 3 in the room. All of them were people she knew. However, she was rather surprised to see Konohamaru and Moegi along with Neji sitting in the room. "Yo, Yuri-san, you're gonna be our third teammate?" the deceased Sandame's grandson asked. The redhead blinked as she stared at the others. Moegi waved at her repeatedly and Yuri began to understand where all of this was going. This was going to be her team and Jonin-sensei for the Chunin exams. Still, she never assumed Neji would become a sensei to former academy genin. "I guess I am," she said as she closed the door and began to make her way down the steps. Neji slowly nodded and leaned up. "I can tell that you weren't expecting this. To be honest, it was brought on me as well. There was a meeting of the Jonin and we learned about what happened to Ebisu and Shizune," he said, folding his arms while Yuri's eyes narrowed. "You mean that they decided on their early retirements? I wish Ebisu-sensei would have told us about it. I would have tried to organize a party for him," Moegi answered. Yuri's frown deepened before she looked at Neji. As expected of a Hyuga, he was an expert at keeping his face neutral. "So that's the story they're going with. I guess it'd be a little disheartening to Konoha if they found out a 2 Jonin, one even being the Hokage's aide, broke under the pressure. I wonder how they're doing," she thought to herself. Suddenly, Yuri had a thought. "Wait a minute. What happened to your other friend, the guy with the glasses?" she asked. Moegi leaned back and nodded. "Oh, Udon. Well, supposedly he's starting an apprenticeship. It was a little unexpected, but we wished him the best of luck. He won't be gone forever and we were told that there was a genin without a team." "Seemed like a good idea for everyone," the orange-haired girl said. Yuri slowly nodded, not entirely convinced. However, she decided to let the matter go. "Haha. It'll be easy, with boss's girlfriend by our side, how can we lose?" Konohamaru asked, with a lot of confidence in his voice. "Confidence is good, but overconfidence can mean your life. Now, someone in this room hasn't exactly been fulfilling her mission quotas. So we'll be doing missions all day today. Before we end, we'll do some teamwork training. I'm not sure what Iowa's Chunin exams will be like, so you 3 will have to be ready for anything. Luckily for you we'll have at least a month before we have to begin our journey to Iowa," Neji said as Moegi and Konohamaru saluted. "You got it. We'll show them the power of Konoha. Then, when I become Hokage I'll reverse boss's banishment," the latter said with a bright smile on his face. Despite herself, Yuri couldn't help feeling the enthusiasm. She began to see why her lover found such a young man as a friend. "So what are we doing then?" she asked. The Hyuga Jonin soon dropped his neutral expression. His lips curved upwards. "How does a couple of D-rank missions sound?" he asked. "Goddammit. X." Kushina rubbed the back of her head as she opened the door to the Uzumaki compound, her mood effectively ruined after her meeting with Tsunade. This day was already not going the way that she wanted. When she entered the house, she saw how silent it was. It seemed the local workers were either on break or just off today. That meant that Ebisu and Shizune had nothing to do. She really didn't want them spending their days alone, that would no doubt lead them into dark thoughts from their traumatic experiences. Then again, just working to exhaustion to avoid the issue wasn't good for them either. Perhaps it'd do well to get them some sessions with a Yamanaka when she could find the time. Now that's not a face I like to see on you, Kushina. Aside from the obvious, what's the matter? Kushina lifted her head and she noticed Riza enter from the other side of the living room. Both redheads smiled and gave each other a hug before the former fell to the couch. I don't remember having this much trouble when I was dead, Kushina said with a sigh while Riza laughed. Don't I fucking know it. So any word on our patriarch's banishment? The mother of Tayuya asked while Kushina put her head in her hands. She massaged her temples, telling Riza all she needed to know. The latter grumbled and leaned her head back. That bad, huh? Well, let's not talk about that then. What's the news about anything? Riza asked. Kushina exhaled. Well, I'll be heading to Kiri. I was supposed to meet up with my son and investigate some of Danzo's whereabouts, but Tsunade basically shut that door in my face for right now. I'll be leaving in 2 days. The others are investigating the Jashin cult that infiltrated our compound. Unfortunately, with Naruto's banishment he's off the team. However, he's decided to go on a more personal mission to locate something related to Danzo. Riza hummed. Well, I'll have to send a message to the Hyuga clan. Hiyashi was planning to send out Hinata and a team of Hyuga to Uzushio to check on him. If he's off the island then I guess we can't really make it about clan relations, she responded back. Kushina laughed. Yeah, well, we'll send the Hyuga clan an extra shipment of quality ink and paper for the concern. It's nice to have another branch of our family working with us, even if most of the village wouldn't want to do so. Though, I suppose that's what we signed up for with the blood pact, she reasoned. Riza snorted. Yeah well, seems we've all got missions lately. She, Tayuya, and I will be heading out to do some barrier repairs for the Konoha allies. Something about building the relations with the nation of Suna. Can't wait for a trip to a beach with no water, she grumbled as Kushina laughed. Before you leave, would you mind instructing Yuri with me when you've got a chance? I think it's time we continued her training. As a Jinchuriki, we can't leave her untrained. We also won't be able to hide her status forever. I don't want to think that Sochi will be overcome again, but I won't leave it to second guesses. Yuri was able to suppress him momentarily while I was indisposed, she explained. Riza nodded. Yeah, that makes sense. Alright, we'll work on her together. I don't have to leave until the end of the week. I'll drill her as much as I can. Think you can leave a clone or two here? She questioned. Kushina nodded. Yeah, that should be possible. Alright, let me get up and start preparing for the trip. Only good I see out of this is that I'll get to see Mei again. It's been a while since we got together. I should probably prepare some food for her. Also, after Yuri's Chunin exams we're gonna bring all the Uzumaki back to the island. It'll be the time for all of us to not only train, but delve into the ruins of our ancestry, she said. Riza stilled. You don't mean the ruins where only those honored can go, do you? I'd always thought it was a myth. The scrolls of Fuinjutsu preserved by the first founders of our clan only supposed to be left to the heirs of the clan. How do you remember those? She asked. Kushina sighed. Because I tried to prove myself worthy of them once before I was pregnant with Naruto. It didn't work out. I'm sure that with my son we'll rebuild our clan. It might not be to the prominence it was before, but it will have a healthy history and there will come a time where we should leave more for the next generation. In order to do that, we must learn of what came before and improve upon it, she said. Riza suddenly smiled. Wow, you've matured. Not the tomboy you used to be, she teased. Kushina blushed. Shut up, Databane. She growled as she shot up and stomped off. Riza laughed, clutching her stomach as she watched her cousin walk up the stairs. Riza's eyes softened and a frown appeared on her face. Are you alright? Riza turned her head. She noticed she entered the room from behind the wall along with Ebisu and Shizune. Beware the folly of the gods for their wrath is deep and their anger is long, she replied before she got up and patted the former Kumo shinobi's shoulder. Nothing, let's prepare to greet our Hyuga brothers and sisters. We have to update them on the situation concerning Naruto, she answered. Got it, he said. He then turned to Ebisu and Shizune. You're both dismissed for the day. Here's your pay. She handed Shizune and Ebisu some envelopes. The two slowly took them, their faces obviously still crestfallen. Riza watched the interaction before the three and sighed. Seemed the wounds still ran deep. If not for both being under the realm of Naruto, she wondered what they would do just to make the pain stop. It seemed living was sometimes harder than dying. Where's my daughter? Riza asked. Working with Ibiki-san at the moment. Why? He asked. Riza hummed. No reason, she answered as she walked off. Sasuke closed another folder and massaged his eyes. They seem to be more organized than we thought, he said slowly while Yugao drew on the whiteboard with a black marker. Many who face Jashinists have often compared them to cockroaches. You think you've killed them all, but there are always more. Above all else, they have a strong ability to survive. Whether they all have invulnerability like Hidan did remains to be seen. However, we can confirm they aren't cavemen or cannibals. They have a very strict hierarchy and established relationships with a delicate power structure. They have confirmed bases here, and here. Yugao said, dotting at least 5 different points on 5 different maps. Kakashi leaned forward. There are even some who speculated that there are Jashinists in my positions of power, whispering animosities in the leaders of the nations, to satisfy the urges of Jashin, the one-eyed swordsman said. Makoto picked up a piece of paper detailing the reports on former Jashin hideouts. Yugao, you said you wanted to investigate these former tunnels. However, if you look at the reports from previous investigations, there doesn't seem to be anything found previously. Konoha used the Inuzuka, Hyuga, and Aburame, some of the best tracking clans in the world. Even they found nothing. We'll have to come up with better methods than they did, the former matriarch of the Uchiha clan said. There are no absolutes in this world. Besides, the report also stated there wasn't much to find. The place had been cleaned out long before they got there. No trace of chakra, no DNA left, not even a blood trail. Either some of these reports are fabricated, or the Jashinists did a lot of work destroying their trace, the purple-haired woman answered. Sasuke turned to his former teacher. Kakashi, were you a part of that mission at any point? I remember you had a summon contract with canines during the time of Suna and Oto's invasion of Konoha, Sasuke stated. Kakashi placed down another folder and shook his head. Unfortunately, I wasn't. It was actually a series of coincidences. From the date of one of these reports, I was on separate missions for all of them. This one, I was in the Anbu taking away Koyuki Kazuhana during her uncle's usurpation in the Land of Snow. This next one, I was dealing with matters related to Kiri, he said. Makoto frowned and grabbed another folder. It's odd that Konoha never considered having you in any of these cases. Though, given how talented you were, I suppose they thought there were greater threats to the village's security than a cult of murderers, she answered. Or he was specifically targeted to not get involved. Come to think of it, look at more of these reports. The teams assigned to these cases were full of men and women not too experienced in the field, Sasuke said. Yugao shrugged. That's normal. It's usually the non-urgent missions that are given to new Chunin to help test their leadership and teamwork capabilities, she replied. Sasuke wasn't convinced. He scanned the detailed reports on the bodies of Jashinists that had been recovered. Within each of them was extremely complicated medical terminology that he just couldn't hope to understand. However, he knew someone who could help. I'm gonna follow up on these. Based on the reports from the people who worked on the corpses, their last memories were written down. They were told to head to the Rising Dragon's Head. Also, given that the Uchiha were supposed to be the police in Konoha around some of these times, and yet not a single one of these has been signed off by an Uchiha officer, especially given that at least 3 of these bases has been found just beyond the border of the Land of Fire, he said, looking to Yugao for confirmation. Yugao saw the determination in her young teammate and allowed him to go. The Uchiha grabbed a stack of papers and walked out of the room, which left Kakashi, Makoto, and Yugao alone. The 3 watched him go and Kakashi chuckled. He's grown a lot since you've appeared in his life, Makoto. I shudder to think what he would have become if Naruto hadn't brought you back, he said. Makoto smiled. Yes, he has become quite the reliable young man. It's actually funny. My last memory of him before I died was of him as a boy. Now he's grown into a strong man. However, I still catch glimpses of the sorrow behind his eyes. I don't think anything will truly take that trauma away from him, but he seems to be dealing with it well, she said. And you? Yugao asked. Makoto's smile lessened. Let's not talk about that. The 3 members stayed in the room together for a moment or two before Yugao exhaled. Right, well, let's begin investigating the former bases made in these folders. You two head to the first one. I'll be there to join up with you in a moment or two. I'm gonna ask for a meeting with Tsunade-sama to ask for permission to leave the village. We'll have to investigate these other possible locations, she said. And if we're not allowed to? Kakashi asked. Then we'll just have to bide our time. Whatever reasons Lady Tsunade might have to not allow us out, this is a matter of village security. There'll be a mission regarding that cult given to us eventually. I know because they specifically attacked the Uzumaki clan. Lady Tsunade would definitely be seen as not caring about the pride of a noble clan, if she doesn't allow at least one Uzumaki in on the case. With Naruto out, that leaves Kushina and she will involve us, Yugao replied. Kakashi and Makoto stared at former Anbu for a moment and nodded. Well, when you put it like that, I don't really have much to say. Well done, Yugao. Kakashi praised. The purple-haired woman laughed. I have my moments I guess, she replied. She then opened the door to the meeting room and left while Kakashi and Makoto picked up the other files. They then returned them to the archive department and stepped outside. The sun bright in their eyes, Kakashi and Makoto pulled up their scarves as the wind blew against them. The two nodded and raced off toward the first of the bases they'd researched. Yugao watched them go and turned her attention back to the Hokage mansion. The young woman made her way to the building. Meanwhile, Sasuke stared up at the Konoha hospital. His eyes narrowed before he stepped inside. He saw plenty of men and women in the lobby, waiting for their appointments. He quickly took notice of the receptionist and presented himself. Haruno Sakura, where is she? He asked. I'm sorry, sir. Sakura is currently very busy with some patients. Can I leave you a message for her? The receptionist nurse asked. Sasuke sucked his teeth, but sighed. Tell her, Uchiha Sasuke needs to speak to her. I can wait, he said as he walked away and leaned against the wall. He decided to read through some of his clan's scrolls. One should never stop improving. Besides, he wasn't about to let the Dobi get ahead of him if he could help it. How rare of you to visit me, Sasuke-kun. After an hour or so, Sasuke leaned up from his reading to see Sakura standing in front of him with a white doctor's office. She took off her face mask and smiled at him. I've been busy, he replied. Why yeah, me too. Anyway, what can I do for you? I can only spare you a moment though. I'll be going into a surgery in the next, Sakura asked, attempting to keep her cool. Is there any place we can be alone? It's important, the Uchiha returned. Alone. Sure, follow me, she said, her mind running through various scenarios she thought she'd gotten rid of in her younger years. The young woman led her former teammate down a hallway and into a separate room. She pushed a piece of hair from the side of her face, but Sasuke didn't notice. Instead, he slapped some folders on the table. Sakura stared at them for a moment. Tell me what you see when you look at these, he said. Sakura cleared her throat and walked over to the folder. She picked it up and roamed through the pictures a little disappointed. Nevertheless, the young woman's medic training began to take over. Her eyes narrowed, staring at the discarded medic reports and the photos of the bodies. For more than 5 minutes, Sasuke silently watched Sakura work as she pulled up one photo from another. Finally, she put them down. What about them? She asked. Sasuke frowned. Nothing in this seems weird to you? He asked. Sakura looked at the pictures again. Well, aside from some outdated pieces of information regarding the state of the bodies, I don't know what you want me to look at. Besides, even if something was weird going on, all of these bodies were more than likely destroyed already, she said. Sasuke bit his lip and cursed. Of course they are. What I wouldn't give to have the Dobi with us right now, he thought as he clenched his fists. Sakura stared at her former teammate, obviously concerned. What's this about? She asked. The heir to the Uchiha clan contemplated telling the medic Nin. In the end, he nodded to himself. If I tell you, then you need to keep it quiet from others. We're investigating the matters related to the Jashin cult, he answered. You mean like that former Akatsuki member that Shikamaru, Naruto, and the others faced? She asked. Sasuke nodded to that as well. Yes, they infiltrated Konoha and attacked the Uzumaki clan. We're investigating their whereabouts. There is also a lingering suspicion that they might be residing in the village, he said. Sakura widened her eyes, but Sasuke quickly calmed her down. Which is why we're proceeding with heavy caution. Now tell me, is it possible that the hospital keeps notes on these people? He asked. The pink-haired girl rubbed her chin. It should. There's records of almost every resident and patient. Our file room is filled with them. However, unless very specific procedures are addressed, not even Hokage-sama can access those documents. Doctor-patient confidentiality is a very serious matter. Unfortunately, I can't allow you to specifically go into those files and documents without at least an order of importance from the fire daimyo. You might think the Hokage is all-powerful, but even they must be wary of the power of the daimyo, she answered seriously. Sasuke narrowed his eyes, but Sakura suddenly gained a smirk. Me on the other hand, I've got plenty of access. Here, look at this table that this corpse is on. We usually have files for all corpses that have used a particular table stored in the computers. If I can find anything to help you, then I'll pass it on to you, she said. Sasuke didn't like that option, but it seemed to be the only one available to him. Alright, I'll set up a communication system between you and me in case I'm out of the village. Remember, don't speak to anyone you don't need to. We have no idea where they are, he said. Sakura firmly nodded and she watched Sasuke turn around and leave. After a moment, she bit her lips. Sasuke-kun, she called out. The Uchiha turned around. He saw the steel in Sakura's unflinching eyes. I know about Naruto. Lady Tsunade told me. So I know about Makoto-san, Yuna-san, and a lot of the others, she started. Sasuke didn't speak a word, but Sakura wasn't expecting him to. Instead, she continued. Sasuke-kun, I love you. I've always loved you. Ever since I first laid eyes on you, you were always the only person in my heart. Even when you left Konoha, I never stopped loving you. I loved you so much I was willing to betray everything, my home, my parents, and everyone else in the village. You wanted to rebuild your clan and I wanted to be the one you do it with. I know in my heart that I'll always love you, even when others loved me. She exclaimed. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, again staying silent. He watched her then sigh tiredly. But, you don't love me. I don't think you ever will. No matter how much I try. You love someone else and, I realize what Naruto did was for your benefit. Maybe that was what I hated. Someone else fulfilled you that wasn't me, but, I've got no right to intrude on your life nor your choices. I don't approve of your relationship with Yuna-san. I don't think I ever will either. However, I hope you live your best life possible because you deserve it. We're both entering adulthood. Sometimes childhood dreams don't always work out, but we pick up the pieces and try to create something better than them. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks for hearing me out, Sakura said. When she looked at Sasuke, he continued to look at her. He then sighed. In another life, I could imagine myself building a life with you, Sakura. However, that is not this one. I'm not as great as you think, but, thank you, he said before he jabbed her forehead with 2 fingers. Stunned, Sakura rubbed her forehead before he left. The pink-haired Kunoichi sighed and leaned against the wall. Well, that happened. In the meantime, Sakura picked the paper she'd written on and chuckled. I guess that little ghost stunt from Naruto was just a prank on Kaharu-sama. Guess I should at least tell her it's not a big deal that she thought it was, the female medic Nin said with a chuckle before she grabbed the piece of paper and walked out of the room. Somehow Sakura felt even more liberated than ever. Sheesh, when I thought of an awesome adventure, this wasn't what I pictured. How long's he been sitting there? Suigetsu asked before he was slapped into a puddle courtesy of Karen. Keep talking and you'll just interrupt him, damn it. Then we'll be staying here for another 2 hours. Karen chastised. Once Suigetsu's head reformed, he rubbed his hair and sighed. Glad to see the redhead hadn't changed even after so much time on the island. Whether with Sasuke or with Naruto, Suigetsu wished for death even being near Karen. Why'd she have to come along too? Are you two arguing again? You two fight like an old couple. Do some training if you're bored. When was the last time you rode a seal, Karen-san? Yura asked as she read a book she took from the Uzushiogakure vault. Since the last time it was your business. Karen exclaimed while Konan, Jugo, and Kotoheim watched the rest of the group interact. The latter of the 3 shook her head while she twirled a kunai through her fingers. You Akatsuki guys argue like this? She asked. Without taking her eyes off the group, Konan answered. Some more than others. Truth be told, Conan had been a part of aiding Nagato in setting up the duo members of the team. There always seemed to be some small childlike part of Nagato that enjoyed the irony and themes taken with some of the team. The team of Deidara and Sasori, despite the two's vastly different points of view, was one of the few things that made Nagato even remotely happy. Naturally, he never voiced it and any insinuation was met with dismissal, but Conan knew her friend. Well, she knew who he used to be. In fact, she actually didn't like leaving Nagato to the whims and deceptions of Uchiha Obito. However, she wasn't sure what to do. Maybe if she got some time alone with him, then maybe he'd see things her way. It was just a matter of how she should do it. That was one of the reasons she even took this assignment. It just gave her some time to think. Meanwhile, Naruto slowly opened his eyes and exhaled. He'd just spent the better part of 2 hours working through Taji's memories, by linking his spirit with hers. Taji and Terra floated over him, waiting for his judgment. He rubbed his upper lip with his finger a moment or two. Based on what he'd seen, it seemed like the base was on the edge of the wind and earth countries. At best that was what he got before the memories became too painful to hold onto. He turned back to the others, standing up to get their attention. Everyone quickly gathered around him. So, where are we headed to? Suigetsu asked. We're gonna be heading between Wind and Earth Country. That seems to be the place where the memories end. The closer we get, the more we'll have to be cautious. The old guy's been planning his move since before Gigi was Hokage. Hate to say it, but the guy's way smarter than me. I don't think we'll be able to move in such a way that we won't go unnoticed. However, we can easily use that to our advantage. More specifically, we can use you, Naruto said, pointing to Kotoheim. The Fuma Kunoichi raised an eyebrow while the others looked at her. Me? She asked. Yup, more than likely, Danzo's not gonna know who you are and we'll use that to our advantage. It's gonna be a long run over there. However, before we get there, Conan, how good is your scouting? Naruto asked. Surprised to have herself addressed, Conan thought about the question for no more than a second. I would assume I'm pretty good at it, she replied, much to a roll of Karen and Suigetsu's eyes. What are you planning in that devious mind of yours, Nisama? Yura asked while Naruto's lips curved upwards. For the next 30 minutes, Naruto would go through his plan with his team. The others looked at him with wide eyes. Even the spirits hidden in his blade gawked at what he was insinuating. And you're sure this is gonna work? Karen asked. Well, I'm sorta making this up as I go along. It's one of my stronger points, he said as Suigetsu slammed his head into his forehead. We're so fucking dead, he replied. Nisama will be sure to revive you in the event that you are, Yura chuckled while Conan quickly took over the attention of the group. She asked for the map and Naruto handed it to her. I'd advise that we proceed with caution. Earth Country still hasn't lowered its guard since that incident with the regent. We'll have to proceed with caution even if you've been banished from Konoha. It wouldn't do well for you to agitate the Earth Daimyo. It'd be a great burden on Haku since she's become the Whirlpool Daimyo, she advised. Naruto gained a contemplative look and slowly nodded. Right, then, here's what we'll do. Naruto said with a wide grin on his face while the others looked at him. Not one to skip out on explaining a good plan, Naruto brought them all in on it. Once he was done, Suigetsu's mouth thinned. I'm the one who's gonna be driving the horse, aren't I? He asked. Would you rather have the other job? You've got an opening since I could always use my clones for it, he answered. Suigetsu sucked his teeth while Karen sighed. I'll take it back. You're not as stupid as I thought, cousin. She praised. Naruto blinked. He was sure there was some kind of insult in there somewhere, especially from the way Yura glared at Karen. He was also pretty damn sure Kotoheim was laughing at him. Even the normally quiet Jugo was smirking. Thanks, I think. Anyway, let's go. I haven't been to this part of the area so I can't teleport us there. We've got a long way to go before the sun sets. If we're fast enough, we can make it to an inn where we won't be sleeping in tents, Naruto replied with a grin on his face. Now that's something I can get behind. Let's go, Karen exclaimed. Yura snorted. Heaven forbid you rough it in the woods, you princess wannabe, she said before Karen crashed her face into hers. You wanna repeat that? She scowled while Yura chuckled venomously. Princess wannabe, Yura repeated before she growled back at Karen. Conan, Naruto, Jugo, Kodohime, and Suigetsu watched the interaction curiously. Karen and Yura quickly started hurling greater insults at each other as Suigetsu turned to Naruto. And you have to deal with 3 of these. How the hell do you even manage? He asked. Naruto shrugged. Meh, I like it datbayo. He said. Really? Kodohime asked. Naruto laughed for a moment while Suigetsu scoffed. You Uzumaki guys must have been total masochists, the white-haired man said as he watched the 2 women argue. They are quite spirited, Conan observed, and Naruto quickly nodded. Maybe he had a thing for feisty women. That'd certainly explain his attraction to Sakura back when they were kids. Naruto took a step forward. Alright, that's enough fighting. If you 2 keep it up, then you're both paying for our lodging for the rest of the trip, he warned as the 2 looked at him in shock. What? That wasn't part of our deal. Karen exclaimed while Naruto folded his arms. Consider it an expansive clause of a business contract, he responded, enjoying the scowl on his cousin's face. Karen and Yura glared back at each other, growling before the latter turned her head away with a huff. The former clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Oh, this wasn't over, not by a fucking long shot. Once that was finished, they rejoined the group and everyone dashed off towards their next destination. Naruto led the group far. From the afternoon until late into the night, they ran through Wave Country and into Fire Country. Well, thankfully the daimyo hadn't seen fit to banish him from the country. At least that way he wouldn't have trouble if he ran into any Konoha shinobi. As they ran, Chiraku continued to impart wisdom on the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan. All the more asking questions about what Naruto wanted, what was the meaning in suffering, what was the fear of death if life for some was not worth living. All of them were questions Naruto didn't know how to answer. Nevertheless, as they ran he thought on them. He thought about what the shinigami said. He thought about the darkness in him, one that attracted the vengeful and vile spirits to him. Even as he paid for a hotel, assigned everyone their rooms, and had a team meeting about what to do when they woke up, it was still in the back of his mind. He sat on a warm singles bed, meditating as he'd been taught. Chiraku sat in front of him. In this journey we call life, especially for shinobi, we all craft the masks we show others. The lies we tell ourselves to keep the mask, the truth slowly starts to combine together. Man shall believe in his own comforting lie rather than confront the harsh, unforgiving truth. Why do you think that is? Chiraku asked as Naruto inhaled and exhaled. The spirits from his sword, Kimimaro, Suiren, Dan, Gari, Pakura, and Yahiko, watched quietly. All of them felt the immense power of their summoner's Honsho. While he wasn't the brightest, they could feel the pressure of his understanding, his wisdom, slowly being strengthened. Because it hurts. Because the pain is unbearable, the truth forces you to look at your own ugliness, I guess. When everyone is against you, the only person you have to rely on is yourself. It's a very selfish desire in the end, datbayo. However, I think it's better to some to prop up their own selfishness as a good thing rather than work to change for the truth, he said. Chiraku didn't either nod or shake his head, instead he continued his own observations. Unknown to Naruto, all the spirits in front of him released a shiver when they saw the crooked grin on his face. They could feel the maddening will of a vengeful spirit slowly taking advantage of the unaware summoner. Naruto's hair quickly lost its harsh yellow color. In its place lay beautiful silver hair. However, despite his royal appearance, Naruto was clearly in some pain. His face scrunched up and beads of sweat fell down his face. Nevertheless, the crooked, demented smile never stopped. That said, true to form, Chiraku didn't focus on that outward stuff. He could sense the agony and distress in his master's face, especially when black seals started to rain from his eyes and down the rest of his body. And what are the lies that you tell yourself, Naruto-sama? Look deep within yourself and try to find the answer. What truth hurts so much that you wanted to live the lie? What peace are you unwilling to give yourself for the comfort of convenience? Chiraku asked firmly. Naruto grabbed his head. Everything seemed to hurt. He could hear 1,000 voices in his head, each of them threatening to overtake him. That fucking monk's words are bullshit, Shikyo-sama. What does this righteous fucker know of the lies and truths of the world? Trust me, I can give you the answer that you want. Peace. What have we need of peace? We're shinobi, birthed in blood and buried in blood. Do you know what peace grants? It grants stagnation, it grants boredom. If there's one thing we don't need, it's boredom. That's what you've always been, right? Merge your soul, your spirit with mine. Is that what you want? To be noticed. To be acknowledged. We'll make the world acknowledge you. Burn it all down and make them submit in a blaze of fire and glory. Your name will be immortalized. In the depth of his mindscape, Naruto clenched his head as a spirit rubbed the blonde's shoulders, whispering the greatest things in his mind. The walls of his mind turned into the widest fields of fire and iron. Naruto stood atop a mountain of corpses, each of them mercilessly brought to heel for their own defiance. As more and more people challenged him, he conquered them. Finally, no more war, no more violence, an entire world united under the empire of Uzumaki Naruto. Yuri, and Kushina by his side, greater than any Hokage, greater than any daimyo. Man and spirit, every domain given to him. Finally, no one would be able to deny his existence. No one would ever pretend he didn't fucking exist. No one would throw his life away like garbage like. And is that really what you want? Is that what Uzumaki Naruto wants? Chiriku asked, his loud voice piercing through the veil of Naruto's corrupted thoughts. Of course, it's what he wants. He will be acknowledged and remembered. He will have everything his heart desires. The Uzumaki clan will return to its former glory and he will lead both the Uzumaki clan, the mortal realm, and the spirit realm. His name shall be one that lasts forever. The spirit bellowed, standing behind Naruto as the blonde sat on his throne. Fear not, the one who remembers what you did for deeds and time shall wither away the character of men. Rather fear the one who remembers what you were, for that shall be the path that you motivate others to follow, Chiriku answered. Well, you know what I think. I think Naruto doesn't need either of you right now. So I'll make it frank. Get out. A heavy roar blasted through the depths of Naruto's mind. Suddenly, all the voices stopped. When Naruto opened his eyes, there was no fire, there was no empire, there were no corpses. Everything seemed so quiet now. Naruto dropped to his knees in the sewer water of his own mind. I don't know what I want. I thought I did. I wanted to become Hokage to get people to acknowledge me, because it was the only way I could think of, that no one would ever forget me, no one would ever disrespect me. I just wanted to be someone important to them all. It was all I could do, the young Uzumaki said to himself. He looked up and he saw Kurama staring down at him, the fox's white tail swirling in the air. Quit looking at me with that pathetic look, Naruto. It doesn't suit you, the nine-tailed fox said as the silver-haired young man looked at his Biju, his face filled with anguish. Kyuubi, what do I do? Nothing's making sense to me anymore. I feel like nothing matters anymore, Naruto said while the Kyuubi's eyes narrowed. He lowered his head until he met his former jailer's disturbed gaze. You heard the monk, Naruto. Look within yourself. I've seen your kind for over 1,000 years, brat. Your lives are filled with a never-ending spiral of self-reflection that leads you to the stupidest choices I've ever seen in my entire life. As I expected, your power has granted me a higher existence even I'd thought possible. I actually thought I couldn't get more powerful than I was before, but now I'm a far cry from what I used to be. Thanks to you we all have a certain amount of authority over the spirits as well, Kurama said as Naruto noticed Morio and the kindred staring at him along with the other summons in his sword. In particular, Pakura had changed considerably. Rather than that of a spirit form, her body had materialized considerably. A long white cloak surrounded her body and there was a gaze of power in her eyes just not present in the others. She walked forward and helped Naruto up. When he stood to his feet, the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan checked out Pakura's new attire. You look different, he said while she nodded. The session turned out a little terrible. You'll see when you open your eyes, but we were all pulled back into your blade, Naruto-sama. Though we can't help you with your problem, we can slow the possession down. Unlike last time, the one that took us over before was too powerful. It fed on the darkness without you and subdued us. However, it wasn't without its positives, was it? Pakura asked. The Kyuubi nodded. Indeed, brat, you've slacked a bit on your training a bit. It seems your growth affects all of us as well. Whatever that bastard who took you did, it made your soul and spirit stronger. We're all so tied to you I doubt any of us was aware of it until now. For the entirety of this trip, you're gonna have to be soulbound with at least one of these guys every day. The stronger they all become, the more time you'll have. It'll probably go even faster if you fight opponents with them. That was one of the problems you've always had. Try some new things, the giant fox said in a reprimanding tone. Naruto shivered and rubbed the back of his head, nearly laughing. Now's not the time to be laughing. Wolf shouted, which got everyone's attention. The beast floated until he was right in front of Naruto's face. We didn't submit to you to get taken over. Take your duties seriously. There are powerful forces looking to take you over. You heard Shinigami-sama. Many of them would love to watch the world burn or take it for themselves. They'll use you and the others however they see fit if you don't get your act together. He exclaimed angrily. Naruto released a burst of Honsho, the sewer water beneath his feet crashing like angry waves in the air. Then why the hell won't any of you tell me what's wrong with me? Maybe if I knew, I could try and fix it. However, it seems like everyone knows what's going on with me but me. It feels like nothing's changed from back when I was in Konoha. Everyone knew I was the host of the Kyuubi except for me. Everything about my life seemed to be about decisions made for me without anything I ever got a damn say in anything. He fired back before he sat on the floor and rubbed his head. Maybe it was better if I just died back there. Maybe that would have been the only decision I couldn't make on my own, he said as he rubbed his head. Everyone remained quiet, a little shocked at the blonde's outburst. The waters settled and Naruto remained quiet for a little while. Shikyo-sama, Suiren said, holding out a hand before Naruto sighed. Yeah, alright. That's a good plan, Kyuubi. I'll do that first thing in the morning. Thanks, guys. I just need a minute, he said before his mind drifted away from the confines of his mindscape. The others looked at each other worriedly. Meanwhile, Naruto slowly opened his eyes, noticing Yura sitting in front of him. He looked around the room. Cracks were on the walls, the furniture had been thrown every which way, a few picture frames were on the floor, broken. Even the bed was a mess and Naruto could only sigh. I did this, didn't I? He asked. Yura slowly nodded and caressed his cheek. Wanna talk about it, Ni-sama? She asked slowly, sensing his solemn mood. For once, Naruto had nothing to say. He just slowly pushed his forehead against Yura's. She closed her eyes and wrapped him in her arms. Will you really promise to love me, no matter what I turn into? He asked, almost like a whisper. Yura smiled, placing her head on his shoulder. I promise. I'll always love you, Ni-sama, she answered equally softly while Naruto slowly smiled. He lifted up his head and kissed Yura. She pushed her lips against his, sighing blissfully when he touched her cheek and massaged her red hair. Well, maybe he'd been wrong before. There were decisions he made that helped his life. He loved this woman kissing him. He loved his mother. He loved Yuri. He loved them all so much. After a moment or two, the two separated, their cheeks flushed. They then started cleaning up the room to the best of their ability. They then laid in the bed. Naruto couldn't help admiring Yura's nightgown before she crawled in with him. She rested her head on his chest while he looked up at the ceiling. His mind filled with too many things, he slowly fell asleep embraced by his lover. Her fingers moved through his hair, a warm smile on her face. Don't stay up too late, Sakura-san. Wouldn't want you passing out along with the patient on the surgery table. A nurse laughed as she packed up her things while Sakura laughed. Don't worry. As soon as I check some materials and put in some patient work, I'll be heading home as well. Thank you for your work, Anishi-san. The former member of Team 7 said as she waved her friend away. Once she was alone, Sakura sighed. She stared at some folders and papers of the confidential patients still admitted to the hospital. Beneath a harsh lamplight, she flicked a pen between her fingers. To be honest, a lot of her thoughts were on Sasuke and Naruto. For once, the latter more than the former. More specifically, she thought about apologizing. Of course, she didn't approve of the whole incest thing, both from a moral standpoint and a doctor standpoint, but she did realize she'd been out of line. It was Naruto's business and she had no right to interfere in that. He was like that one very annoying friend you'd consider close enough to be a brother. She just wanted what was best for him. However, she couldn't dictate his life, especially not one with as much stress as the responsibility he'd endured. Every day she saw some of the sickly patients and the weeping parents, children, relatives, and loved ones. If it was her, she'd love to do anything to just revive them and make everyone happy. However, what did she know about the state of the dead? Sometimes, it's just someone's time to go. Many other scientists and theorists spoke about the overpopulation of the elemental nations. In a rather morbid way, war was the divine's way of keeping nations under control, to keep the earth from being strip-mined and destroyed. Sometimes, we all desire the old, but it must make way for the new. I bet I could make a thesis paper on that if Naruto would let me, Sakura thought to herself before the silence in the hospital became her ambience. When she finished her work, her eyes narrowed. Sakura slipped out of her chair and picked up the piece of paper she'd written on about Sasuke's picture. A sigh, Sakura walked through the dark halls, a couple of flickering lights here and there. Her heels clacked against the floor. Somehow, a shiver ran down her spine. Was the hospital always this dark? Guess learning Naruto's the summoner of spirits really got me unnerved, she thought to herself with a shake of her head. The hospital was a lot quiet without Shizune around. As Tsunade's apprentice, she'd learned what happened. Now, it seemed that Shizune was under the Uzumaki clan's protection and employment as a soul under Naruto. Well, she hoped the former assistant would find well-being there. After a moment, Sakura reached the computer lab, each of them lined up in rows. She quickly grabbed a chair and pulled open one. She booted up the monitor and found the words on the screen. Let's see. The number for this is DLO6789, Sakura said to herself as she accessed the computer's database. She inputted the number for the table the corpse was 1. After a moment or two, the computer showed a list of all the medical records regarding that corpse table. There were a lot of them. That said, Sakura also remembered the date from the folder Sasuke showed her. When she put the information into the computer, she was given one date. She clicked the link. Suddenly, a window popped up. Unauthorized. It appears that you don't have permissions to access this page. Please make sure you're authorized to view this content. If you are authorized, please submit a ticket to authorized personnel. Press close to close this window. Sakura stared at the screen. What? I don't have clearance. But I've been given the highest form of clearance thanks to Tsunade-sama. What does it mean I don't have access? I'm sure it hasn't been revoked. I wasn't informed of any maintenance either, she said as she tried to access the file again. She tried again. And again. And again. Sakura inhaled and exhaled, trying to not bring down the table in a rush of anger. She grabbed her ID card and looked at it. After a moment, she tried to access other documents. Unsurprisingly, she managed to get even into the S-rank files without much difficulty. When she went back to the other file, she was met with the same message. What's going on here? Why can't I access this file? This is ridiculous, she thought to herself before she leaned back and scratched her cheek. After a moment, Sakura exhaled. Okay, clearly either something was wrong with her card or something was wrong with the file. She was willing to bet it wasn't the former though. Sighing tiredly, Sakura grabbed a piece of paper and wrote down all the relevant details regarding the file. Well, if her card didn't work, then maybe Tsunade's would. Unfortunately, it was very late and, knowing her master, she'd just scream at her. Not hoping for that, she'd do it in the morning. She'd then return tomorrow night and try again. If even that didn't work, then clearly this was something she could bring to Tsunade seriously. What kind of file couldn't even have the Hokage access it? Once that was done, Sakura collected her notes and walked out of the computer lab. She was ready to go home and take a nice, long bath. As she walked away, Sakura never noticed that she wasn't as alone as she thought. A figure watched her leave, their eyes red with the signs of bloodlust and anger. The figure licked their lips and clenched their fingers before they slithered back into the darkness of the hallways. See anything? Kakashi asked as he pointed a flashlight at some of the empty cells. Makoto, her single Sharingan active, slowly shook her head. She stepped over a pile of rusted iron. The ground was a little uneven from the results of a large battle. No, I'm not seeing anything so far. To be honest, I don't even know what we're looking for, she replied as she flashed her own light across the corridors. If you both could stop talking, I could give a better answer, Hakun said as he sniffed the ground. Kakashi and Makoto chuckled to each other, but they allowed the small dog to work his magic. To be honest, the two stared at the hideout a little apprehensive. It felt almost alive despite being abandoned. For the entire day, Kakashi and Makoto had been moving through the haunted halls of the former Jashin base. Even now, dozens of symbols honoring the god of slaughter littered the walls. Pakun continuously commented on the smell of blood, despite the base having been abandoned for over 10 decades. I guess it just goes to show how many people we failed to save, Makoto said while Kakashi continued to shine his light. We'll just have to make sure that no one else suffers under them. That's the best we can do, he answered. Makoto slowly nodded as they moved through the halls. Chains tied to walls, bones and skeletons not swept away, the afterimages of the lost and damned, doomed to wander the halls for all eternity. Now that Makoto was aware of the vile spirits surrounding them, as well as the good, she wondered how many ravaged through these caverns. How many of them, whether attacker or victim, wandered through here even now? Kakashi grabbed his scarf and wrapped it around his neck. For some reason, the caverns seemed to get colder as they made their way through. Never mind that the sun had long since gone down. Yugao, do you read? Are you and Sasuke making your way here? He asked. I read you, Kakashi. Yes, Sasuke and I are en route. It took a lot longer than expected from Tsunade-sama to give us clearance to check the other bases. Once we've investigated this one, we'll prepare for next steps, Yugao replied. Find anything? Sasuke asked. Kakashi pushed his light over another group of cells with nothing to show for them while Makoto stared at the ceiling. Not unless you like cave bats, the former sensei of Team 7 said. Well, you better put your vacation plans on hold, Pakun said as he stared at the abandoned base with a look of fear and trepidation. Why? What's wrong? Makoto asked. This base isn't abandoned. At least not until recently. I'm smelling over 1,000 hostile signatures in this cave alone, all of them ranging from normal people to elite shinobi. A few of those smells are also around the other bases near the village as well. Chapter 63. Above all, don't lie to yourself. The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point that he cannot distinguish the truth within himself, or around him, and so loses all respect for himself and for others. And having no respect he ceases to love. Fyodor Dostoevsky. Kakashi and Makoto stood stunned. They quickly turned off their flashlights, their hands on the handles of their blades. Are you sure? Kakashi asked, years of shinobi experience heightening his senses to every piece of the darkness that seemed out of place. I'm good at what I do, Kakashi. You can take my word for it. Though, you can both calm down. None of them are here. I told you it's been abandoned recently. I don't smell anyone here. If they were here, then most likely they left either 5 or 6 days ago. Their smell is all over the place. Let me tell you, whoever Konoha was using to sniff out these guys, they didn't do a very good job, Pakun replied. Slowly, Kakashi and Makoto relaxed. That said, they remained aware of their surroundings. Maybe, but we should take into consideration the fact that the data showed the time between the last investigation of this base and ours was over 10 years. Could the smells have withered? The mother of the Uchiha heir asked. Pakun sniffed the ground, a grunt of disgust on his face. It's definitely possible. I'm smelling a whole damn community here right now. However, something's wrong with their scents. I know they're in Konoha, but somehow I can't pinpoint them out. It's like they've developed ways to hide from the villagers' trackers, he spoke, sniffing the air with his nose. Makoto sheathed her blade. So we at least know we have Jashinists in the village. From your description, they've got forces in both the civilian ranks and the shinobi corps. This isn't good. We don't know where they are or how close they are to the Hokage, she said before she touched her headset. Yugao. Sasuke and I heard. Let's not panic just yet. If they've been in the village all this time, then they're clearly aiming for something. It's clearly not the life of the Hokage, but now a few unsolved murder cases in the village are now starting to make a lot of sense. We have to tell Lady Tsunade before she leaves on her trip to Kiri. I also don't think we'll have time to check those bases. But we have to be careful. They could have been living in the village for years. If we show anything suspicious, then they'll know about it. First things first, Kakashi, Makoto continue clearing out the base. However, be careful, leave no trace that you were there. They might have trackers of their own. Sasuke and I will head back to the village. First, we'll inform Kushina. Then we'll go together to Tsunade-sama. Kakashi and Makoto glanced at each other. They slowly nodded. Very well. We'll make our way back when we've scouted out around here a little more. We'll rejoin you soon enough, Makoto said as she closed the channel on her headset. This'll be a lot of work though. I also don't like the feeling we've got here, he said. Makoto agreed. A shinobi's paranoia is his water in the sands of death, she answered back as she walked down one of the hallways, her footsteps echoing through the caves. And who's that from? Kakashi asked while Makoto opened her eye and revealed her single Sharingan. Kakashi did the same. I read it in a Shinobi Gear magazine, Makoto replied as they moved away into the darkness. Sasuke and Yugao slowed to a stop until they stood on top of a tree branch. Sasuke, you go to Kushina and inform her about the situation. I'll head to Tsunade-sama's office. Hopefully, she hasn't closed up for the night. Remember, try not to look any different than before. We have no idea who's in the village, but we know they aren't a small number. If we're not careful, this could turn into a civil war, she said. Sasuke folded his arms. The one time the dobi would be of use, he gets banished, he said before he stiffened. He then looked at Yugao. He saw the dread on her face. When she looked at him, he knew she had the same thought as him. Could Naruto's banishment have been a verdict from them as well? Yugao held up a finger. Alright, let's not go crazy, but think about it slowly. As it stands, Tsunade-sama was the one who issued the punishment for Naruto. As far as I'm aware, banishment isn't necessarily done by trial. It's based on the Hokage's sole judgment. Unless Lady Tsunade's become a part of the cult, I don't think that counts to this growing conspiracy, she said. Sasuke hummed. Maybe, she did have a long-standing history with hemophobia. It doesn't suit her, he answered. Yugao released a small chuckle, but she sighed. We can't rely on Naruto for everything. Looking at the village, I can see why people are concerned with him. However, I agree. It'd be easy to just have spirits point out those here, but bringing Naruto back in, without Tsunade-sama's order, would be difficult. Plus, we don't really know where he is right now aside from him investigating Danzo, she replied. Sasuke shrugged. Either his mother or Yuri would be able to find him maybe. Either way, Tsunade will have to consider it since this will be a matter of national security. If Naruto can help us pinpoint them, then I don't see why she wouldn't allow it, the Uchiha heir replied. Yugao hummed and mulled the thought over, but turned back to him. Let's not make any more guesswork. Head back to the village, double time. She said. Sasuke nodded. The two Hinoken members dashed back to Konoha as fast as they could, their forms mere shadows in the night air. The journey, even for them, was a little lengthy. Over an hour and a half passed before they landed on a branch overlooking the village. So, they're in there somewhere, Sasuke said with narrowed eyes. Yugao leaned against the wall, staring down at the same scene as her partner. Yeah, potentially 1,000 of them in a village populace of, at most, 80,000. It won't be easy to track them down, especially if they've been here since the last of the investigations. I understand how you feel though, you can't feel secure even in your own home village, she said. Sasuke snorted. Then we'll make them pay for this. In fact, I might actually have an idea, but it relies on a bit of luck, he said. Yugao leaned up. I look forward to hearing it when we've got some extra time. For now, remember the goal for now. Go inform Kushina. I'll go to Tsunade, she said. Sasuke vanished into the night without another word. Yugao grabbed her scarf and sighed in the cold wind. Why did the world have to be this way? Yugao entered the village and jumped across the familiar rooftops. Her body glided through the night air as she spotted the Hokage mansion in the distance. As the city lights propagated the village, she stared down at the men and women laughing or walking through the roads. She narrowed her eyes, but continued moving. She landed below the windows, taking note that the light was still on. It seemed to be another late night for the Hokage. Thankfully, she seemed to be alone. Yugao, you can enter, Tsunade said. The Hinoken member silently chuckled. Despite being behind a desk, the Hokage was still a perceptive one. The purple-haired woman grabbed the window and slowly opened it. As soon as she stepped inside, she stood in a corner. Tsunade observed Yugao's odd behavior for a moment before the Hinoken woman walked over to the desk. She slipped a piece of paper towards the Godime then silently stood in the corner. Tsunade, suspicious, grabbed the note and opened it. When she read it, she managed to keep her face neutral despite the severity of the situation presented to her. She then crunched the note in her hand. Come with me, she said. Yugao nodded and the two left the office. They walked through the very halls of the mansion. Neither spoke a word until they walked into what appeared to be a regular mission room office. The two passed by numerous files of mission records until they came to the third cabinet. Tsunade reached behind the cabinet and felt a seal on the wall. When she pushed chakra into it, Yugao quickly found herself and the Hokage in a place of almost total darkness save for two chairs and a light hovering between them. This was a secure place, not known to anyone aside from the Hokage and a very select few privileged individuals. Council of Konoha knew that this place existed. In times of great crisis, when no one could be trusted, when everyone was suspected, when the danger could be everywhere, this was the one secure place where great secrets could be discussed. It wasn't a place to be used often. Tsunade sat in one of the chairs. Alright, Yugao, I've had a long day and I'm really tired. What is this? She asked, brushing a hand over her head. Yugao sat in the chair and nodded. Lady Tsunade, the Jashin clan that infiltrated Konoha to attack the Uzumaki clan, they haven't left Konoha. They are in the village. If you remember, just today I asked you for permission to investigate the other bases, she said. Tsunade leaned back. Yes, you did. I also gave you permission. Now, what do you mean they haven't left? She asked, her voice increasingly agitated. Yugao quickly explained. Lady Tsunade, I had Kakashi and Makoto investigate one of the abandoned Jashin hideouts. Turns out it wasn't abandoned until recently. If you remember Pakun, one of Kakashi's ninkin, he said that he smelled over 1,000 Jashinists ranging from civilian to shinobi. All of them are of varying strength. He also pinpointed the sense into Konoha. Unfortunately, that's all we can garner right now. We don't know where they are or how much they know, but they are in the village and they've most likely been in here for a long time. The grave look on Yugao's face made Tsunade uneasy. She didn't want to admit it, but maybe banishing Naruto at this point was a mistake. Still, it wouldn't do well to just unbanish him now. Not even a week had passed since he'd been gone. If she did reverse it, many would see it as favoritism. No doubt they'd believe Tsunade couldn't separate her emotions from her duties for the betterment of the village. Besides, with the rumors about Naruto's contract being known to the village, then it was most likely the Jashin cult knew of it as well. It also wouldn't look good from a political sense. And they could be anyone, Tsunade said, not really asking. Yugao nodded. Tsunade bit her thumb and scowled, but the former wasn't finished just yet. We also believe they have some people stationed in the mission department. Our reasoning is because the squads of Genin, Chunin, and even Jonin who investigated them weren't too good in their fields. Despite having the Inuzuka, the Aburame, and even the Hyuga that have been a part of the teams, they were teams that had struggling record numbers. It was theorized that they were chosen, not to help boost their record, but to not reveal the base of operations which could have been happening under or given their track record. Tsunade finished and Yugao nodded. Naturally, this theory did have a few holes in it. It was also possible that it was just a simple coincidence, but it sure didn't seem like it. Yugao didn't trust it. Tsunade remained silent for a long while. This was concerning. To be honest, she really didn't want to deal with this issue right now when she was about to leave. In fact, maybe she'd have to call off her trip to Kiri. However, she did then that wouldn't go unnoticed. The worst possible thing to do was to let the Jashinists know that Konoha was aware of them. It certainly explained how they'd disappeared so readily from the Uzumaki clan grounds. If that was the case, then... Lady Tsunade, Yugao said, turning Tsunade from her thoughts. I'll be frank, ma'am. We need Naruto. If you don't want him near the village, then, that's fine. We can maybe set him up somewhere for a little while, but these guys have been hidden for over 10, maybe even 20 years. They won't expose themselves easily or maybe ever. If the spirits of deceased targets can pinpoint at least one, then we'd have some place to start. As it stands, we've got nothing, Yugao said. Tsunade narrowed her eyes, but she could see the resolve in Yugao's eyes. There was a deep fire that the young woman hadn't had ever since her lover, Hayate, died. While that wound most likely hadn't healed, she'd grown to accept others as part of her life. Yugao, you used to be one of my best Anbu agents. I understand that you're the leader of this mission. If you're willing to bear the consequences of Naruto's actions, then I will agree to your suggestion, she answered. Yugao did not hesitate. I am. I believe in him. Tsunade chuckled and sighed. Brat got to you too, huh? Fine, I can allow him temporarily inside the village. If you can find him, then tell him that this mission takes precedence. He'll be your responsibility. In the meantime, I will be creating a cabinet of who I believe to be the most trustworthy people. During this time, we must protect the populace during this time. Do you have any plans for finding Naruto? Tsunade asked. Yugao sighed. Well, there is something we can try, but he's busy doing summoner duties. Kushina said she would go with him before you assigned her to the journey to Kiri, she replied back. Tsunade grumbled. Ah, right. Kushina had spoken about something like that. I see. Alright, good work, Yugao. As you know, keep the discussion of this meeting to a bare minimum. I want to keep this contained as much as possible. I'll send a message to Jiraiya. He already went out to look for Naruto anyway. In fact, who would you suggest as part of this group that I'll need to assemble? Tsunade asked. Yugao blinked. Why you're asking me? She asked. Tsunade nodded. That's right. I want to look for advice from all sources. I'll trust your judgment, she said. Yugao thought about this for a moment or two. She looked up at the lone light hovering above the two of them. We'll need the heads of the major tracking clans. At this point, we need those whom we can trust. Shikaku-san, Inoichi-san, Hiyashi-san, Sun-san, and Shibi-san. We'll have to find a place to contain them as well. I think Ibiki would be appropriate. That is what I can think of right now. If you'd allow me, I can draft a better plan tomorrow, she said. Tsunade hummed. No, that won't be needed. I just wanted your thoughts. Let's go back, she said as she stood to her feet. Yugao nodded. The two quickly returned back to the mission department next to the cabinet. Yugao left first and after 10 minutes, Tsunade left as well. As the latter left the room, she frowned and thought she felt a presence in the hallway. She looked down the dark corridors, wondering when they'd been so dark actually. She didn't remember the lights going out. Well, she was ready to go home. Maybe someone saw her office empty and assumed she went home. Oh well, it was a long day and an even longer headache. The Hokage walked off. It was late enough. Hopefully she could get some sleep before having to deal with everything tomorrow. Unknown to her, the shadow of a person rounded the corner, eyeing her as she left with a wicked smile on their face. Sasuke landed in front of the Uzumaki compound. He quickly noticed just how much improvement had been brought to since the last time he'd been here. When he looked at the steady increase of the Uzumaki clan, he figured it'd be time to start on his own clan. In fact, perhaps it'd be best to do that now rather than later. There were many Uchiha grounds that needed to be renovated. Well, maybe that could happen after they were dealing with this incident. After a moment, Sasuke knocked on the door. It wasn't long before it was opened. Sasuke, a little late for a visit, isn't it? Riza asked with a smile before she made room for him to come inside. When Sasuke came inside, he noticed Yukimaru playing shogi with Shi. He also noticed Tayuya scratching her head with thousands of seals on the floor. Everyone took notice of him. Well, if it is the emo. What are you doing here? Tayuya asked before Sasuke offered her a glare. He still remembered her as the one who helped him escape the village 2 years ago. Hello, Sasuke-san. Yukimaru waved while she offered a bow. Sasuke returned the greeting before he turned back to Riza. I'm here looking for Kushina. Is she here? He asked. Riza walked past him. Yes, she's in the back helping Yuri with her training along with Komachi. Come with me, she said as she led him through the living room and out into the training area. Through the sliding doors, Sasuke quickly heard the sounds of combat. It didn't take long for him to see a flurry of punches as kicks. He watched Yuri valiantly fend off attacks from both Komachi and Kushina. A lone kunai in her hand, a dozen bruises and wounds, she fought on while Kushina landed on the ground. Focus, Yuri. There's no enemy that's gonna let you move the way you want. You have to. Kushina paused when she saw Riza and Sasuke together, walking towards them. Komachi and Yuri noticed the two as well, the latter inhaling and falling to the ground. Hey, Sasuke. Fancy seeing you here. Yuri half chuckled half panted while she laid on the ground next to Komachi. The blonde poked her young cousin with a twig, smiling while Yuri snapped at the branch with her mouth. Kushina walked over to Sasuke. She saw the look in his eyes and quickly understood. Komachi, take Yuri inside. Can Riza stay? She asked. Sasuke glanced back to the older redhead and shrugged. Komachi and Yuri quickly took notice of the rather odd atmosphere and quickly vacated themselves. Kushina and Riza brought Sasuke off to the side and the young Uchiha finally sighed grimly. About the Jashin cult, he began. Kushina and Riza hardened their gazes. Both waited for the Uchiha to find his words, but that didn't take long. So, we've discovered that there were Jashin bases near Konoha that were once thought abandoned. After a bunch of inconsistencies and unsettling theories, Yugao told Kakashi and my mother to investigate one of them. Kakashi was using his dog, Pakun, and we learned the bases weren't abandoned until recently. There were over 1,000 signatures in there and many of them are in Konoha right now, Sasuke said. Despite their surprise, Kushina and Riza remained calm. Are you sure? Riza asked. Sasuke shrugged. It depends on how much you value the tracking skills of Kakashi's Ninken, he answered. Kushina hummed. There's a reason their tracking skills are said to be even better than the Inuzuka. If that's the case, then it's most likely the truth. If over 1,000 Jashinists are in the village, then we could be looking at a potential coup or potential war. That's not something we can afford right now, she answered. Riza chuckled bitterly. Right now, I don't think we can afford that at all. Iwa would be looking for just one reason to invade along with the rest of our enemies. The treaties we've got with Suna, Kumo, and Kiri won't last in the face of the minor nations that Iwa aligns itself with. However, that's beside the point as we've got over 1,000 murder-happy socio and psychopaths hiding in the village, Riza hissed. However, Sasuke wasn't finished. There's also reason to believe that they've been here for years already since the last investigation into the bases, he answered, which didn't make the two ladies any happier. Riza asked for Sasuke's attention. Do we have any idea where they are? She asked. Sasuke shook his head. No, which is why I had Sakura looking into a dead Jashinist that was in one of the folders. She hasn't gotten back to me just yet, but I'm going to see her tomorrow to find out what she's learned, he said. Kushina narrowed her eyes before she grabbed her sword. Kuchio's no jutsu, she said and swung her sword. Immediately, Deidara and Sasori presented themselves to her. Both of you go monitor Haruno Sakura. I want eyes on her while she continues her investigation, she said. Both bowed, though not without a suck of the teeth from Deidara. Hi, Kushina-sama, they both said before they floated off. She watched them go along with Sasuke and Riza. What was that for? The cousin of Kushina asked, which got the matriarch of the Uzumaki clan to look at them both. I don't know, but I have a very bad feeling. If they were bold enough to invade our compound, then they know we're going to investigate them. I've got no illusions that they know we're aware of them in some capacity. If we're investigating them now, then we're gonna have to cover our bases, she said. Sasuke frowned. You think someone's gonna go after Sakura? He asked. Kushina shrugged. It's possible. I wouldn't put it past them. At the very least, I'm not gonna let them do whatever they want after challenging us Databane. Sasuke, has the Hokage been notified? She asked. Sasuke nodded. Yeah, Yugao's doing it right now. We toyed with the idea that it might have been because of them that Naruto's punishment was banishment. I think she might persuade Tsunade to allow Naruto back in the village at least to deal with this situation. I think we'll need his help, he said. Suddenly, Riza remembered something and turned to Kushina. Wait, can't you command spirits as well? You summoned those two from before, right? She asked. Kushina sighed. I wish, Databane. Unfortunately, my son's the summoner, not me. I'm just a bit of a beneficiary from him. I can't just call spirits out at random like he can. The only reason I could commune with them is, usually, when he's near me. The summons I've got is because he gave them to me so naturally they listen to my call. Just because I have his power source, it doesn't mean I can do everything he can, unfortunately, she said. Riza sighed and Sasuke mentally deflated. That wasn't what they wanted to hear. So then what do we do? Should we tell the others about this? Riza asked. For now, let's not. We don't need this information spreading out any more than needed. It's not that I don't trust our clan, but the best poker face is the one you don't even know you're wearing. Besides, Yukimaru-kun and Yuri-chan are still young. Yuri's also very emotional, so much like my son. I don't think she'll be able to hold off attacking someone. That said, she'll have to learn to control those emotions eventually. We'll make it known eventually. Tomorrow, we'll make a better plan. However, this does give a bit of a positive. Tsunade might not go to Kiri and I can focus on the efforts here with you, she responded back. Sasuke and Riza nodded. What about Gurren and Fuka? If you remember, Fuka was gonna investigate the Jashin incident with a handful of Chunin and Jonin, the latter replied, a little worried about what this would mean for her cousin and her mission. Thankfully, Kushina already thought of that. We'll tell them too, but no more than that. For now, we'll see where this leads. Good work, Sasuke, Kushina praised. Sasuke quickly nodded and turned to leave. Also, relay instructions to Kakashi and Makoto when they return. This is going to be a difficult time. It's unfortunate Sochi will have to let go of his mission for Danzo, Kushina said. Sasuke smirked. I don't think the Dobi will complain, he said before vanishing into the night. Kushina and Riza watched him go. The latter looked at the former. You don't look happy. What aren't you telling me? She asked. Kushina felt like her mind was racing for a moment or two before she turned to her cousin. Something about this doesn't seem right. It's also like we're being pulled. First Sochi loses control, then Tsunade banishes him. We decide to investigate the Jashin members, we find information about the Jashinists and, once again, we need my son for it. I don't like this, the redhead said with a scowl. Riza quickly mimicked the expression. You think someone's manipulating these events? She asked. Kushina sighed. It's not impossible. I hope it's not true because if it is then that means there's someone who knows how we're doing things. Aside from the Jashinists, we might have a bigger traitor here, she said before she summoned Asuma from her blade. The former lover of Kurenai knelt before her. Go to my son, Asuma. Tell him to be on the ready to meet us back at the compound if Tsunade allows him back in the village. We need him, she said. Asuma bowed. Yes, Kushina-sama, he said before he flew off with great speed. Kushina watched him go before she turned around and walked inside.